I surrender to the Almighty my mind, speech, and body. Vanakkam. We are currently reading a book called Thirukkural, which is one of the important books left behind by our Tamil ancestors. This book gives a map or a blueprint for humans to reach higher states of existence called as Padam in Tamil and to eventually reach a space of never-ending bliss, which is called as Veedu in Tamil. The other names for Veedu are Mukti, Moksha and liberation and so on. And this can be achieved by just living the life of a householder in a certain way. And that way is discussed in this book. Parimalagar has given us commentaries for this book. And in the introduction section of the book, he clearly tells us what is this book all about and who should read it and what is the benefit for the reader. He says specifically that this book is only for someone who is ready to approach the subject of life in a scientific manner, specifically the life of a householder or a married person. He says that if there is anyone who is willing to put in some conscious effort in executing a plan for conducting your married life and is searching for the way to attain happiness, fame and padam and veedu, he says, I will show you the way. You will reach your goal, and that is urudi. Urudi means guarantee, a promise. It is a heavy promise, but these are people who have renounced the world and become one with nature or reached something called as yogam with nature. So their words are normally considered as agama pramanam, and it is considered to be the highest level of truth. So I believe they mean what they say. Anyway, the way of life for the householder is called as illaram, and Thirukkural shows us how the life of a householder can be lived in a manner that will allow a householder to form attachments with the immediate family, friends and the society. And this path will allow the love to flow from the self outwards towards the immediate family and eventually to the society at large. And such a life would lead a person to fame. He says that the goal of Illaram is to attain fame, and once humans reach that stage, they tend to get bored of it and they will start looking for higher purpose in life. The book shows a way to reach that as well, and that path is called as Thuravaram. So Illaram and Thuravaram are the two main arams discussed in this book. Aram is nothing but a term that refers to the order found in nature. The book is divided into three big sections called as Paal. The first Paal is the Arathu Paal, and it explains the Illaram and the Thuravaram. The second big section is called as the Purut Paal, and here Vallivar talks about the principles of management which is essential for wealth creation, and we all need wealth to lead a good married life, isn't it? And the third part of the book is called as the Inbathu Paal, and it addresses the principles of pleasure. So Aram, Porul and Inbam are the three main topics discussed in this book. And where are we standing now? We have entered the Arathu Paal, and the first subsection or the viyal is called as the Payira viyal. In Payira viyal, we have entered the first chapter called as Kadavul, Vaazhthu or in praise of God. This chapter gives an explanation of what the Tamils understood as God. The first Kural said that God is the foundation of creation, and we saw in detail what that meant. Today we will enter the second Kural. The second Kural goes like this: Katrathanaal, aaya payanenkol, vaalarivan, natraal, thozhaaar, enin. A very superficial meaning of this Kural would be, what is the use of our education if it doesn't help us to touch the feet of God, who possesses complete knowledge about everything? So that is the general meaning that you will find everywhere. Now we will go into the in-depth meaning of this Kural. This is one of my most favorite Kurals because it talks about the goal of education, and this is a question that I have been trying to answer ever since I started going to school. What is the use of our education? What is the goal of our education? We don't like to do things unless it benefits us in some way, isn't it? Do we read Thirukkural so that Thiruvalluvar can become famous? No. We read Thirukkural so that we can improve our lives. So then what is the use of education to us? We all want our children to be well educated, and we put in a lot of emphasis on education these days. But honestly, what are we trying to get out of our education? While there are many educational models out there, I don't think anyone has been able to define clearly a proper goal for our education. What are we trying to achieve? Is it just a certificate? Why not just print it ourselves? What is wrong with that, right? Or is it money? But money can be earned even without an education. So this question remained with me for a very long time until I read this Kural. The Tamil ancestors are saying that the goal of education is not to get a degree or earn money, but as a first step, our education should give us knowledge. What is the difference between knowledge and education? Aren't they one and the same? Turns out they are not. See, when we take in information from outside, it is called as education. When we read a book or watch a documentary and we get some information, that is called as education. But once we process that information and whatever comes out of us as our own creation, that is called as knowledge. Swami Vivekananda, a well-known Hindu teacher and philosopher, was a highly educated person. He had a very sharp and intelligent mind. It is said that he used to have an X-ray memory. That is, if he wanted to read a book, he will simply take a book and glance at it, and all the information will be downloaded in his mind automatically, it seems. His guru was Ramakrishna Paramahamsar. Paramahamsar was not an educated person. He couldn't read or write even in his own mother tongue, it seems. Then logically, who should have been the teacher for whom? We would normally expect the more educated person, Swami Vivekananda, to be the teacher for the less educated person, Paramahamsa, isn't it? But Paramahamsa is the guru of Swami Vivekananda. How is this possible? Once Swami Vivekananda was asked this question and he replied, "When we talk, we tend to quote the words of wise people as a reference material to validate our theories and arguments. But when my guru talks, all of his words are so full of wisdom that they automatically become the reference material for others to quote." So that is the difference between education and knowledge. We should understand that when we grasp what others are saying, that is called as education, but the way we assimilate that education and create something of our own, that is called as knowledge. And only when the education has become knowledge, we can say that our education has been useful, otherwise it is just pointless. To stress this point further, our ancestors warn us that if we cling on to education without an expression of our own knowledge, it could even become dangerous, because they say that education could hinder our journey towards God. What I mean is, when we believe that we know a lot because we are highly educated, that could give us a false sense of superior identity, and that would be one more hurdle in our lives, especially in journey towards God. Many saints and scholars have written about this, and there was a saint and a scholar called as Thayumanavar in the early 1700s. He was a minister in the king's court and later took a spiritual path. He wrote many spiritual poems, and his songs are full of the divine bliss which he enjoyed. In one of the songs, he says that God is attainable only for someone who has broken all his attachments to the mind, body, and even attachment to education. It goes like this in Tamil: படிப்பற்று கேள்வியுமற்று பற்றற்று சிந்தை துடிப்பற்று இருப்போர்க்கே சுகம்கான் பராபரமே. Even education is an attachment that has to be given up in our journey towards God, he says. Another poet called Manickavasagar, in his poem Thiruvasagam, he makes a list of things that stopped him from reaching God. He says, these are the things that were acting as hurdles for me in my journey towards God. He says hunger, sleep, travel, women, wealth, poverty, and education. In that list, he includes education also as a hurdle in his journey towards God. In Tamil, he says, Kalvi ennum pal kadal pidaithu. It means, dear God, I had so many hurdles on my way to reach you, and one among them was a hurdle of the ocean of education. So, education can be a hindrance to God till it becomes knowledge. When it becomes knowledge, then there is no problem. So when the education has become knowledge, what we should do is immediately we should learn to let go of our attachment to education. So you see, it looks like we undergo education only to let go of it. How do we understand this? Suppose if we have a brass pot at home, it tends to become black over time. In Indian homes, we normally use something called tamarind fruit to scrub it. We usually take some salt along with the tamarind soaked in water and we rub it on the brass item and it would become clean and start shining. Now, where did this shine come from? Did the shine come from the tamarind or from the brass? If it came from the tamarind, then any item rubbed with the tamarind should produce a shine, isn't it? But when we rub tamarind on wood, the wood doesn't shine. So then the shine must have come only from the brass item. Now once the shine has come out, what we have to do is we have to immediately clean the tamarind that is still sticking onto the brass pot completely. If we let it stay on it for too long, then the brass vessel will become dirtier than before. We have to immediately wash the tamarind and the salt off of the vessel. If we keep sticking the tamarind for some more time on the pot, thinking that it will give more shine, the pot will turn blacker than before. Education, they say, is also like that. Once we get the knowledge, we have to remove our attachment to education. Let me give you another example. What do we do when the kitchen floor of our house is dirty or dusty? We use a broomstick to sweep the floor, right? And after sweeping the floor, what do we do with the broomstick? Do we leave it in the middle of the room? No, we keep the broomstick away from the room. Nobody wants to keep the broomstick in the middle of the room just because it was helpful to clean the room, right? We tend to keep the broomstick somewhere near the place where we keep the dustbin. Similarly, we use the education as a broomstick to wipe the dirt of ignorance in our mind. And once we reach knowledge, we have to keep the education away. Only those who can do that will be left with the knowledge. So, the first goal of education is to achieve knowledge. Okay, so we have managed to get knowledge from education. Is that all? No. This only raises a next question: what is the use of that knowledge? The knowledge, they say, would lead one to discipline or ஒழுக்கம் in Tamil. ஒழுக்கம். This is the third stage. In Tamil culture, it is said that education and discipline should go hand in hand. They believe that education is useless without proper discipline. Discipline is nothing but sticking on to some form of good habits consistently, like getting up early, showing up on time, speaking polite words, etc. One important point to note is that discipline is not advocated for the benefit of the others around us. No. Discipline is practiced for the benefit of the self, and in that process the society would be benefited. For example, if until yesterday I was a rude person and today if I change that habit, then first I am becoming a better person. In this process, others working with me will also be benefited. So education lands us in knowledge, and the knowledge should lead one to self-discipline. This is the third step. After that, what's after self-discipline? They say that self-discipline should lead us to love. In Tamil, we call it as anbu. Some people tend to observe discipline as a method to torture others by showing that someone else is less disciplined. They like to feel good about themselves. That is not the use of discipline. Discipline should lead us to develop a tolerance for others and therefore love. There are many instances in the life of saints where they observe discipline with a lack of love, and the story goes where God came and showed them their flaws and broke the attachment to the discipline. There is one such incident in the life of Adi Sankaracharya. Adi Shankara was an extraordinary scholar who became a guru at a very young age. He is a teacher of the Advaita Vedanta philosophy, and this is an excerpt from his life. Every morning he used to bathe in the Ganges. That was his discipline. And one day he finished his bath and walked out of the water, and a person of a lower caste came running towards him to touch his feet and get his blessings. Now Shankaracharya didn't like being touched by this person of low caste, and he immediately withdrew and said, "Don't touch me, you're dirty." See, having a bath every day and keeping oneself clean is discipline. But this act of calling the other man as dirty because of his lower caste, that is not love. It is a lack of love. In Tamil, we call it as anbu inmai. Anbu inmai means lack of love. So what happened is the lower caste man started firing him with powerful questions. He asked, what is dirty, my body or my mind or my soul? Your body and mine are made of the same substance. So how can one body ask the other to stay away? Are they not a part of the same illusion? And Sankaracharya was shocked at being asked such straightforward questions. His lack of tolerance was clearly being questioned. And it is said that Shankara listened quietly and understood his mistake and humbly acknowledged that he was wrong. It was concluded that since this lower caste person came to break the wrong understandings of Shankara, the outcast was none other than God Shiva. So it is said that the outcast revealed himself as God Shiva and Shankara fell at his feet. So discipline is not something to torture others and create differences in the society. Discipline is something that should allow a human being to create joy for others. See, whatever path that we are traveling in our life in the name of spirituality, a good check to see if we are indeed going in the right path or not is, we should ask ourselves, are we developing more love towards our people or are we increasing the hatred and violence in us? If day by day we are moving towards more and more violence and hatred within us and towards everyone else, then we need to understand that our path is not correct. Love or anbu is a foundation for all spiritual teachings. So anyway, education is to develop our knowledge and knowledge should lead us to discipline or ozhikam. And what is the use of ozhikam? Ozhikam should lead us to love or anbu. Then the next question that arises is, what is the use of love to us? Where would that take us? And in answer to that, our ancestors say that anbu or love would lead us to something called as Arul. Arul can be translated as love for all, something like the universal love. For example, if our child is playing in the playground and suddenly she falls and gets hurt, we would immediately worry and panic and do everything in our capacity to help her, right? That feeling of care that we have for our child is called as love. But what if some unknown kid falls on the ground and gets hurt? Would we still care for her like how we would care for our own child? If we are able to worry and care for any random child that falls and gets hurt with the same kind of intensity, then that feeling of care for that unknown child is called as Arul. So love is something that we feel for the people we know, and Arul is extending that love to even the people not known to us and eventually to all forms of life. So that is the difference between love and Arul. That is why in the older versions of Thirukkural, they would write as, Thiruvalluvar gave us this Thirukkural out of his Arul for us. The exact words in Tamil would be, Thiruvalluvar Aruli Seida Thirukkural. Why? See, these days we write books to make ourselves famous and get more likes in our pages, isn't it? Thiruvalluvar wrote this book not because he wanted to become famous. He wrote this so that generations of people who would take birth hundreds of years after him, like us, should have a good life. We don't know Thiruvalluvar personally, we only have this book. So they say that Thiruvalluvar Aruli Seida Thirukkural. I don't know the English equivalent word for Arul. So anbu should become Arul. And then what? Valluvar says, Arul would lead us to something called as Thuravu, where we will find joy in letting go of our attachments and we will learn to love all forms of creation around us. And this would automatically take us to a place called Veedu or Mukti or Moksha. And what is after Veedu? That's all. There is nothing else after that. Our journey is over. And that is what we call as reaching God. So in this Kural too, Valluvar says that our education should take us to knowledge and then to discipline and then to love and Arul, and finally we reach Veedu. The goal of education is therefore to reach Veedu. Interesting. So then becoming a doctor, engineer or architect or artist, are these not the use of education? That is also the use, but those are the side goals. The main goal is not that. In Tamil, the side benefits are called as Avandira payan. The main goal is called as Moola Payan. For example, if we decide to go to the temple to pray and on the way we stop by a shop to eat a candy. So eating candy is not a benefit of our temple visit? It is. But that is not the main goal. It is only a side benefit, also called as the Avandira Payan. The Moola Payan or the main goal of our temple visit is to pray to God. So in this Kural, Valluva says that the main goal of education is to reach Veedu. Little by little, slowly, our education should lead us closer to that goal in the path that I mentioned. And if that is not happening in us, then our education is not very useful. We may achieve fame and glory and money and all that, but peace of mind cannot be achieved with that alone, he says. How to reach Veedu using our education? The path that I just now explained. Education to knowledge, knowledge to discipline, discipline to love, and love to Arul. That is the way to reach Veedu through our education. Veedu is also called as the feet of God because God is nothing but a space of complete knowledge. The upper limit of knowledge is called as God. So wait a minute, does that mean that we should all take up some kind of a religious book and aspire to reach God? No. He says any subject you take, whether it is physics or chemistry or math or biology, any field of study, the deeper you go and keep asking questions, it will definitely lead you to the space of God, he says. The paths may be different, but we all come to the same destination where the different fields will begin to merge and common patterns will begin to emerge and the underlying secrets of the universe will be revealed. And I believe that would be a space of endless happiness. Imagine knowing everything about the universe, all the secrets of creation. I don't know what that would be like, but they say it is pure bliss. That space of complete knowledge is what we call as the feet of God or Veedu. So in summary, Kural 2 tells us that the goal of education, the main purpose is not to get a degree or earn money or reach fame. All these are the side benefits. The main purpose of our education is to reach Veedu, which is a space of complete knowledge or what we call as the feet of God. There are some more important information in this Kural, but we will see that in the next video. So I will end here. Thank you all for listening. Nandri, Vanakkam.